Okay, I want to say something about this right here. Official story whatsoever, okay? So let's listen to this a minute.
Giovanna, tonight people have been stopping by the Capri Apartments where the suspect, Elliot Rodger, and two of his roommates lived. They've been leaving behind candles and flowers and also some handwritten notes. There's one note there that's for George Chen that reads, "Thank you for bringing joy to the people in your life." But tonight the people in this community and those who knew the victims are experiencing a tremendous loss. Outside the Capri Apartments, students leave flowers for the three young men stabbed to death. On Friday, 19-year-old George Chen was visiting his friends, 20-year-old Wei-Han Wang, who went by David, and 20-year-old Cheng Yuan Hong, known as James. They were roommates with Elliot Rodger. A family friend says they wanted to move out because Rodger was so strange.
What you're going to need to listen to close is key words, okay? Key words.
Wang was an engineering major and an only child.
He likes to play basketball and he's good at the computers. He wants to be a computer engineer in the future. Yeah, he has a good dream. He wants to make his parents happy.
The sheriff's department is analyzing Rodger's YouTube videos and his 137-page manifesto detailing what he called his day of retribution. He wrote about destroying those who enjoyed lives of pleasure and targeting women because they didn't want him. Investigators say after Rodger carried out the triple stabbing at the apartment building, he went on a shooting spree, killing 3 more people and
Okay, so let's see. He enjoyed a triple stabbing at the apartment building to his roommates. So, what I wondered, were they all sleeping, I wonder, when he stabbed them? So this way he could stab one and the other ones wouldn't be aware that he's stabbing one. They went and stabbed the other and they wouldn't be aware, because if they wasn't all sleeping, one person with a knife fixing to stab and kill all 3, I think there would have been a scuffle. I think there would have been a fight. I think somebody would have defended themselves. So that's questionable. How did he stab all 3? Were they already sound asleep? The shooting started at 9:30. What time were they stabbed? The shooting started at 9:30, 10 o'clock p.m. At their age, chances the 3 of them wouldn't have been in bed, right? At least I would think so, right? When they were stabbed. So of the 3, unless they were stabbed maybe the night before while they were sleeping, right? Nobody said when they were actually stabbed or what the estimated time of death was. Okay? So if I was to go with nobody said what the estimated time of death was of these 3 students, you go that Friday night, 9:30, 10 o'clock, this is when the shooting started. So you know he would have stabbed these 3 before the shooting, probably, right? Common sense would say so, right? So if the shooting started between 9:30 and 10 p.m. Friday night, then I would have to think that he stabbed these 3 before the shooting. That would make it earlier in the evening yet. So what's the chances of them sleeping? Chances of them sleeping isn't very good, very likely. What's the chances of 3 of them not being able to defend themselves against one person with a knife, or one of them at least getting away, if not 2 of them? See, things ain't adding up here. Once again, things are not adding up.
Tangerine 13. Flowers plug bullet holes in the windows of the deli where Christopher Michaels Martinez was killed. Surveillance video shows the chaos. Elisa Hopper was at the register when the shots began. One person climbs over her to get cover. She gave Michaels Martinez CPR, but he did not survive.
We were trying to compress the wounds. Couldn't even tell where the wounds were. There's just so much blood.
The shooting rampage finally came to an end when Rodger crashed his car and then shot himself in the head. Authorities found 3 semi-automatic 9mm handguns registered in his name and 400 rounds of ammunition in the car, all purchased legally in Southern California. One of Rodger's neighbors, who does not want to be identified, says he tried to befriend Rodger in the past.
Okay, now let's stop there. One of Rodger's neighbors, who does not want to be identified, tried to befriend Rodgers in the past. Okay, well, I guess we're going to have to look at the wording, befriend. Befriend. Okay, so do they mean that he tried to become close to be a friend to him? Or is this befriend? Because the last time I looked, when people say somebody befriended somebody, befriend, when you put the B before friend, most of the time it means somebody stabbed somebody in the back, befriended them. You know, pretended to be a friend with them, befriended. So I don't know what they, maybe what they're meaning is he tried to be friends, right?
He seemed incapable of socializing and was clearly troubled.
Every single time we invite him outside, there were plenty of girls and just didn't even make an effort.
See, that sounds staged right there. Every time we tried to invite him outside, and there was plenty of girls. Well, we know how it is when there's girls and there's guys together, and we know what the stereotypes are about, don't we? If somebody thinks, and we already said that the roommates said that he was strange, so they wanted to move out because he was strange. So if he was so strange and unsociable, why would you try to invite him outside? We know how society is, and I know how the stereotypes are. People who find other people to be different than the clique they're hanging in don't invite somebody outside the clique that they find to be strange to be with them. So I'm having trouble buying this.
Talk to anybody. I mean, he was so closed off, and it was like when he's sitting there, you could just tell he's just thinking these thoughts.
Okay, now here you go. He was so closed off, so when he was sitting there, you could tell that he was thinking these thoughts. So he could read his mind, and he knew that he was thinking these thoughts of killing people and going on a rampage. Because, see, he read his mind. He already knew that he was thinking these thoughts. Do you follow what I'm saying? This person who's not showing his face is so willing to say that you could tell what thoughts he was thinking. I was able to read his mind, and I knew that he was thinking of killing people. I already knew that he would stab and shoot people because I was reading his mind, because I know what he was thinking in his head because I was in his head. See, that don't make any sense. Okay? I'm sorry to say that, but let's think about it.
Didn't even make an effort, didn't talk to anybody. I mean, he was so closed off, and it was like when he's sitting there, you could just tell he's just thinking these thoughts.
When he's sitting there, you could tell he's thinking these thoughts. What thoughts would that be, may I ask?
The sheriff's department says Rodger was able to buy guns because he was never committed against his will.
Okay, here's your key words, people. Remember, they're coming after the guns once again. But what is something they want to be able to do to come after guns? They want to make sure that they can diagnose people with mental issues. So let's see. You're born with Asperger's syndrome because we shot mercury into your body as a baby. Oh, you might have some mental issues. You can't own a gun. Is that sort of like on the no-fly list? If your name's on the no-fly list, you're not allowed to own a gun in America. So we have a 6-year-old child on the no-fly list. Oops, 6-year-old child will never be able to own a gun because they're 6 years old and they're a terrorist. Suspected terrorist at 6 years old. And we got more than one child at that age bracket that's on the no-fly list, and they'll never be able to own a gun. Okay?
In these thoughts.
The sheriff's department says Rodger was able to buy guns because he was never committed against his will.
Okay, he was able to buy guns because he was never committed against his will. Committed to a psychiatric thing for mental issues against his will. Let's see, we're using the excuse that he was a loner. We're using the excuse that he didn't have a girl in his life or try to socialize with people. So now what we have is a society full of people who run in their cliques and stereotype out people in 1 to 5 seconds on a regular basis. Okay, and once they're in their little cliques and their little groups, and this is all over the world, we already know this, it's all over America especially, okay, and they find somebody to be, well, they don't fit in, because everybody wants to be fitting in, right? So when people decide to bully somebody in school and that person don't fit in and they bully them, well, now we're going to further victimize them by bullying them because they didn't fit into what your brain thinks that they should think, right? So let's see. And then we have gender roles in society where one gender chases and does all the approaching and all the oppressing to the other gender who does nothing. The other gender sits back and takes their pick. And, well, we already know from experience in the dating scene how it is, and then with feminism. And we already know that there's more guys alone than there is, women. Sorry to say this, but the truth is, the number of guys alone that can't get a female in their life compared to the amount of women who are alone that can't get a guy in their life. Wow. You could probably count the women who can't get a guy in their life on one hand. Legitimately can't get a guy in their life. I'm not talking about the woman who rejects 500 guys in a row. She can't get a guy in her life because she keeps rejecting him. Because she's approached. I'm talking about the women who don't get approached. That's right, I'm talking about the women who don't get approached by any guys, so therefore they can't get a guy in their life. How many women do you suppose don't get approached? But where I'm really going here is their own words. The own words in this report. I see where they're going.
The Sheriff's Department says Rodger was able to buy guns because he was never committed against his will. Had he been institutionalized for mental health issues, he wouldn't have passed those background checks.
There you go. There you go. So we're going to come up with reasons to commit people against their will so that we can deny them the right to have arms. Sort of like the no-fly list. We added children, 6 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, to a no-fly list. And we refused to remove them kids off that no-fly list, even though we know they're not a terrorist. Why? Because now they'll never be able to own a gun. That's why. That's right. That's the real reason why you can't get your children off the no-fly list. Because if you took them off the no-fly list, they'd be able to own a gun. And now we're in a society where society has created the gender roles. Society, through the media and the fashion industry and the porn industry and everything that's gone on, has created the division amongst the genders and created the groupthink and the stereotypes. So you create the groupthinks and the stereotypes through society, and through the groupthink and the stereotypes and social conditioning, there's a whole shitload of guys that are rejected 1 to 5 seconds, 1 to 5 seconds, 1 to 5 seconds. So now we will target these guys who are rejected by the female gender and lock them into a mental institution against their will so that we can take their guns from them. So to TFLers out there, you've struggled your whole life to meet a female. Now you're in danger of being seized upon and locked up for one reason only. So they can deny you access to firearms. Once again, this is a move to de-arm America. This will only get worse. You'll think, well, these people who can't get somebody in their life, it's obviously their fault. No, it's not obviously their fault. We have gender roles and stereotypes in society and social conditioning through years of programming that's led to the division of between the men and women to begin with. And then you have fashion industry and the pornography industry and the modeling industry and the cheerleading industry that's helped to promote what's acceptable looks that you've all been programmed to your whole life. And when somebody isn't born with them acceptable looks or acceptable height that the girl's looking for, like Gary Coleman, for example, he was always short. Women want a guy they can look up to for a protector. They really don't give the short guy the time of day. There's not too many. There are short guys that get women, but there's not very many of them. Okay? So see, what we've done now is we've set you up. Because we've brainwashed your ass, gave you social conditioning, gave you gender roles, gave you the modeling and the porn industry and the whole 9 yards to get you to all do what you're doing. Most people nowadays have said this, I said this, umpteen years ago. People go by looks. Everybody denied that. They do not. Oh, yes, they do. 1 to 5 seconds. 1 to 5 seconds. And you all know I'm telling the truth. That's why you have forums and societies online that are committed to good-looking people only. Good-looking people only. That's no lie. That's fact. You can find it online. Go look. You got communities that are nothing about dating sites and what have you that are nothing about looks. If you are not good looking, they have to obsess. They have to judge you by your looks before you can join this community. And if you're not good enough looking, they won't let you in. What does that tell you? It tells you everything I've already said. See, this is a deep topic, but this goes right back to everything I've already talked about when it comes to TFL. True forced loneliness. Millions of men are literally forced to be alone because they get rejected all the time. And not through anything they've done. They get rejected because of the social conditioning machine that has managed to brainwash every man and woman out there from the time they was a child. Programmed you to what's acceptable and what's not. Got you all to go by looks. How did we get you to go by looks? Because we put what we perceive to be the best looking in front of you. We sell them lingerie. We put them in magazines. We get models who model for you. We get porns. We get everything that conditions you to that look. And then we push pornography, push the sex. So then everybody goes after that. Of course, naturally. That's exactly what they would do. And of course, there's more guys born that's not going to fit into that. Because this don't really apply to women. It really don't. This don't apply to women. So now what we're doing is we're targeting the lonely guy who can't get somebody in their life, is potential dangerous to society, so that we can have the right to...
So closed off. And it was
right here, hold on.
When he's sitting there, you could just tell he's just thinking these thoughts.
The sheriff's department says Rodger was able to buy guns because he was never committed against his will.
So that we can commit you against your will. So that we can commit you against your will. So that we can take your right to bear arms away from you. The same as we did the little kids on the no-fly list. That's why these parents can't get their kids' name off the fly list regardless of what they do. They've tried everything endlessly to get their kids' name off the fly list, and the government will not remove their kids' names from that fly list. Why? Because this way their kid will never be able to own a gun. So what have we done here? We've targeted the people who society stereotypes out as the next people we're going to take the guns from. Or make sure they can't own a gun. We will start attacking these people and locking them up against their will so that we can have that record, so that we can use that to deny them access to a gun. And it will be through no fault of their own. It will all be because, well, he was too short. Well, he had acne all over his face. Oh, he had this, or he had that. We stereotype him out. He didn't fit into our group scene. Yeah, he wasn't part of the clique when he went to school. Yeah, he was short and he was ugly. So we don't want anything to do with short and ugly. Ain't that right, ladies? Isn't that right, gals? You don't want anything to do with short and ugly. It'd be like Lexi told me. She's a female. No one wants the ugly car when they go to a car lot. Yeah, that's my female. Nobody wants the ugly car. And what do? We go by looks, don't we? Well, of course you do. Because of social conditioning, which is your fashion industry, your modeling industry, your pornography industry, your cheerleading at the sports arenas, blah, 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 on and on and on. Magazines. Do I need to go on? You know what I'm talking about. This is where people get their influence to go by looks to begin with. And this is causes, and because of gender roles, and one gender does all the work and does all the approaching, one gender sits back and just takes their pick. This leaves lots of guys that's not going to get somebody in their life. Like Gary Coleman, 40-year-old virgin. You think it's because he chose to be a 40-year-old virgin? No, Gary Coleman did not choose to be a 40-year-old virgin. Society chose it for him. He was a black guy. First strike. Second strike. He was short. You need somebody you can look up to, right, ladies? Somebody taller than yourselves, right, ladies? For protection, right, ladies? Correct. You know what I'm saying is true. So they've set you up. The next targeted people will be loners. You're going to decide what people haven't had a female in their life in whatever time, and you're going to attack them and lock them up, saying there's something wrong with them when there ain't, so that you can establish a record to keep them from owning a gun. That's right.
Sheriff's Department says Rodger was able to buy guns because he was never committed against his will.
Because he was never committed against his will. See, I knew they would come after the guns, but now I know exactly what this is about. This is about using what society has done, what your governments have done through using media, magazines, pornography, cheerleading, and the whole 9 yards throughout the entire time you grew up. A long, drawn-out plan they've done because, see, they studied the human mind. They studied relationships. They studied this. They knew exactly what they were doing. They spent the years doing this since World War II was over, knowing in 30 to 50 years from the time they started doing this society would be as bad as it is now, which it is. Knowing what their outcome would be, which it is. That's why they gave you PUA, the phony pickup artist. That's right. Problem, reaction, solution. That's why there's MRA with plants like Paul Elam and Ladies' Rights What? Okay? For men's rights activists. You wouldn't have a big men's rights activist if there wasn't a problem with division, but the division was deliberately created. Divide and conquer. Now we're going to use what we created by brainwashing everybody for the last 50 freaking years so that we can now target the guys who can't get somebody in their life so we can forcibly institutionalize them. Don't matter if we keep them for a week. As long as we've forced them in there, we now have a record to keep them from ever owning a gun. It's about coming after your guns one more time now, isn't it?